Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 208 of ReelBlend, a podcast that loves everything everywhere. But do we really need it all at once? These are the questions that I want to know. My name is Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at Cinema Blend. On this week's show, Morbius wins the box office, and I win a bet with a good friend of ours, Arthur. He knows what I'm talking about. Ambulance, Michael Bay's latest film. Ambulance hits theaters, and Mayim Bialik, the great Mayim Bialik, who you might know from The Big Bang Theory, and Blossom, of course. Blossom has a new film coming out in theaters, which we will talk about later on in the show. And
also,
she's
Jeopardy. She's hosting Jeopardy now.
She is also. Is she? That's like a regular thing.
Yeah, I think she's like
part-time. Yeah, part-time between part-time. Her and the gentleman that's like one of the all-time.
Ken Jennings.
I think they're splitting it.
Funny enough, at the end of our interview, which you're going to hear soon, we jokingly said she should come back on the show tomorrow. She's like, no, I got to host Jeopardy. I'm like, oh.
As one does.
One does, yeah.
That is Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. Hi, Kev. How are you?
Hi. Jonathan, Jacob Edward Hamilton.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
The only reason I know that was because like when Jake and I were doing the Twilight junkets.
All the Twilight junkets.
It was Team Jacob, Team Edward, and he had both names.
Yeah.
Which I thought was so funny.
I made t-shirts that said Team Jacob Edward.
More importantly, Jake Hamilton's name is beloved by Michael Bay. And if you, at some point in the future, hear a character named Jake Hamilton in a Michael Bay movie.
Watch it be just like an obnoxious character who gets like blown up in the first 30 seconds.
Well, no, the character's hands they were cooking and painting game. That's Jake Hamilton.
Yes,
right. That's the one.
Jake Hamilton has a real like Johnny Utah quality to it. It's not quite Johnny Utah.
So yeah.
But you could fit that kind of character.
I'd love to, and I noticed this just because like when you guys were sitting down and Bay was like, Jake Hamilton, is that your real name? Like he was just expecting you to be using some type of an alias.
Well, I get asked that probably once every month or so. Someone says, "Is that your real name?" I get that question quite a bit, and it is my real name.
And the other real name is Gabe Kovach in the producer's chair. Hi, Gabe. How are you doing?
Look how handsome he is.
I am good. Good to see everybody. 2 weeks in a row. I think this is all of us together. It's been a while.
Yes, man. Hand.
We've been
I
hit or
take
miss.
next week off. All right. Housekeeping. If you're watching us on YouTube, hello. Good to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Please head down and give us a like and a subscribe. Help us grow out the YouTube community. For all of our audio listeners, if you want to go over and see the types of things that we are wearing and our distinguished backgrounds, go to youtube.com/ReelBlend Premium. Of course, we're available all the different places where you get your podcast needs met. I have to ask you guys, have you signed up for ReelBlend Premium? On ReelBlend Premium, we play a lot of really fun games, including the 2-film challenge, which we did not play last week. We played the IMDb game last week, Jake, and for a while you almost won it, even though you weren't part of the show, because we weren't getting any points at all.
And then Sean just destroyed me.
Yeah, all of a sudden I got like 3s and on a couple of categories, which was pretty random. So to listen to the premium episodes and to get an ad-free version of the show and a newsletter written by me every other week, check the description for information on where to sign up. Okay, we have a lot of show to get to this week, including, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about Michael Bay's film Ambulance. We're going to discuss Morbius and how it did at the box office, but we cannot wait any further to get to our interview with Mayim Bialik, because she is making her feature film debut with a movie called As They Made Us. It stars a couple of newcomers in Dustin Hoffman and Candice Bergen, and is a really emotional drama which shows a really strong hand by her and goes to show that she's going to become a director I think we're going to be paying really close attention to. So after we saw the movie, we reached out and wanted to get her on the show, and she was nice enough to join us. And so without further ado, Mayim Bialik on ReelBlend.
I want to start out talking about casting Simon. And obviously you have this familiarity with him working on Big Bang, which I think is helpful, but it's a completely different relationship. You're not working with him as your co-star anymore. You're working with him, I don't want to use the word boss, but like definitely someone who's kind of telling him what to do, and how a different relationship with someone you're familiar with kind of changes working with them.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great and I think really important question, especially for me as an actor, because switching from acting to directing is its own, kind of beast. But my father passed away while I was on Big Bang Theory. So I was working with Simon daily. I mean, he basically was one of the first people to know, that my father passed away, because we were friends and coworkers, and all of this happened when we were in each other's lives. So the fact that Simon sort of knew my family and knew a lot about me, and I knew a lot about him, was just a starting point for, as I started writing, because that was really the impetus for this, was not like, I'm going to make a movie. It was just like, I need to write. I need to get some of this out. I wrote thinking about Simon, because Simon, looks more like me than my own brother. But Simon is someone who I just respect his acting so much. And even on Big Bang, he's a comedian who lets nothing go. He does not miss a beat. And I wrote with his voice. He was essentially the first person I cast, even before I thought of making a movie, because I knew I wanted that kind of person, that kind of voice. So I never thought he would do it, ever, 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 ever. I think I asked Jim Parsons first, like, do you think Simon would even read this? I just thought he'd be like, oh, that's cute. Mayim wrote something. And he absolutely made no indication in our relationship that he would say, oh, that's cute. Mayim wrote this. That's completely just like me in my head. And I sat on it for about a year after I wrote it, and finally got up the courage to show it to him, and was shocked. I mean, I'm shocked to this day that he did it. Like, this was a very, very small film. Like, it was 90 million degrees and 90 million % humidity. Like, it was a very, like, we didn't even have air conditioning all the time. And I never thought he, or Dustin or Candice for that matter, or Dianna would want to be in that situation with me. But yes, I was definitely intimidated as a director, because I respect him so much as a performer, respect his instincts. And there were many places where I was grateful that he and I had a relationship where he could push back and say, this isn't working for me. Like, I need this. Or, there was stuff that they rewrote. It's not an autobiography. So I was fine with them creating new ways to do things. There are things in the movie that happened and they did them differently than they happened in real life. And to me, that's why you have to be a director who allows actors to have an experience. So I trust him so much, and trusted all of our actors so much, but definitely different. And I would always say, I'm your biggest fan. Like, that was our joke, was my joke, that I was Simon Helberg's biggest fan. And so it felt like, oh gosh, now I have to actually like stand up straight and like be an authority figure, and not just be like, Simon, you're amazing. Can you do it?
Mayim, I want to go right to Abigail, who I think is a terrific part. And I wanted to know if you ever considered doing it yourself. And obviously you decided not to.
Yeah.
So why would you ever direct yourself in something?
I can imagine directing myself. I did not want my first film to be dismissed as more of a vanity project than I already fear people will think it is. I did not want, if for whatever reason it didn't work, if it was bad, I didn't want that to be potentially in the back of my mind. Like, did I do this? Did I potentially ruin an opportunity to have a positive first directing experience because I wanted to be in it? Also, the complexity emotionally of a lot of these scenes, I needed to be watching it. I needed to be seeing it. I needed to be looking at all the things. I needed to be checking continuity. Like, I had to do all those things. And I worked with Woody Allen when he was acting with me and directed. Like, it's bizarre to watch that happen. And, my DP, David Feeney Mosier, he owns this movie, as much as I do. So even though I wasn't even in front of the camera, I needed assistance that way. And it felt, it felt like a disservice to the actors and to our crew to have me divided as such, especially because I am sensitive about it being seen as like, oh my God, she wrote a movie, she directed, oh, she's starring, Sure. I'm like, I all the bad things people might say, I've already said them to myself.
I'm super fascinated by the aspect ratio choice, because you shot 1:6:6 to 1, which is a fascinating choice because I was looking at some recent films, like even Robin Wright shot 166:1, Jon Stewart shot Irresistible 166:1, Maggie Gyllenhaal just shot her movie 166:1. That's a fascinating ratio, and it's a tall ratio. It's immersive. And I was wondering, just your thoughts as a director, the choice of that. For people who are listening that might not know what we're talking about, there's like skinny black bars on the left and right side of the screen, and then you're full from the top to bottom.
Right.
Fascinating ratio, though.
So yeah, this is David's guidance, and we definitely worked on it together. David comes from the Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig world, and he's an exceptional person who also has been with me for years before we even got to make this. Meaning, he was one of the first people that I said, "Will you make this movie with me?" And he stuck with me through many notes, many COVID delays, many, oh my gosh, do we have enough money to even make this? Like, how are we even doing this? So he guided so much of just the process that my trust in him had to be such. So in terms of ratio, also in terms of color, in terms of the differences in color from the present, the past, also the color choices. The movie is, I say, the colors of a bruise. The present tense is blues and grays. It's intentional, and the past is amber. It's the way that you remember photos if you were born in 1975. It is the color of a childhood for many of us, of the late 70s and 80s. So in terms of the ratio, we really saw this more as a play that was kind of playing out, and that was not. I don't think it was because of lack of experience for me as a writer or a director. It was deliberate. This is a movie where you don't need to reinvent the wheel visually. And I think that was a lot of people's fear. And I'm sure it is a lot of people's fear. We're the first time director, like, let's do 62 over the shoulder shots. And let's do we shot it very simply. And so that ratio was meant to display in a very specific way what should feel more kind of theatrical. Those are kind of your curtains.
That's cool. I'm always curious about the decision process in that, because the ratio does affect the immersion.
Yeah,
and
David
process.
would have a lot of other things to say, which would be, much more technical. But again, like, that's the amazing thing about finding a DP like that. He was my creative visionary and partner. This was like the bromance. My favorite times of this film was literally like shot listing with David, over like beer and Thai food in the hotel room.
Wow, that's cool. Awesome. Well, I loved how excited you got at the idea that Simon said yes to your film, because that leads perfectly into my next question, which is, I want you to take me to the moment when a person who is writing and directing their first full-length feature film gets a call. Oh, Candice Bergen said yes. Dustin Hoffman said yes. Take me to the moment where and how you comprehend something like that.
I don't think I have comprehended it, and that's not just like lip service. Like, I can't believe this is happening. No, it's literally like it's like it doesn't fully compute. There's a very like dissociative aspect to making film in general, to making low budget film, to making your first film, but like this aspect, like, it's unbelievable. And what happens is strange, because you're basically like just told, like, who do you want to play that, and they just like send you a list of like every adult human who's between the ages of like 50 and 80. But like, can I get any of them? Like, how does this work? And what happens is you are asked to meet them for like a coffee, or I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I didn't even know that that's what it meant when Candice Bergen like summoned me to a hotel in Beverly Hills. Like, I didn't realize, like, I thought like I gotta like sell it. Like, that meant she wanted to like meet the writer face to face. And I was on Murphy Brown when I was 13 years old, like a million years ago. So like she vaguely remembered me, which I appreciate.
Oh, that's wild.
And at that time she was married to Louis Malle, and so like I knew that like this is a woman who knows cinema. She was really pulled in by this story, and it was kind of the same with Dustin. Like, I was asked to go to lunch with him, and we sat for 2.5 hours. I met his wife. Like, we had like a whole thing. Like, it was bizarre. My life felt very, very bizarre. Dustin also did not know of Big Bang Theory, which is totally fine. He was like, how'd you get interested in directing? And I was like, dude, this is my first movie. Like, it was insane to have to not lie to Dustin Hoffman.
But how does the meeting happen in the first place if he's not familiar with your work?
They sent the script, which also blows my mind. I was like, that my script, like my story. And I think also, and I think it's important to acknowledge, like, as a woman, there's for me, a lack of like confidence in owning my place at the table, even though I was raised a feminist, even though I have a doctorate, even though I'm like a ballsy woman, it's still hard to take your place in this arena, especially, and like, if I was a young pisher right out of film school, this is what my ex-husband told me. He's like, you'd be like, I'm going to make an amazing movie. It's going to be amazing. And like, everything I touch turns to gold. I'm like, that's not my personality. It took a lot to get there. So sitting with Dustin and having him say, like, this script really touched me, and like his eyes were welling up. Like, I'm like, is he acting? What's happening?
Yeah.
I was going to jump in really quick. Sorry, Sean, I'm so sorry, because you mentioned Dustin Hoffman not being familiar with Big Bang Theory, and we have someone that we refer to as a friend of the show, Quentin Tarantino, because he always asks us to do. We hosted an event with him last year, and Quentin confessed to being a Big Bang Theory fan.
What?
And I was wondering who's the strangest person you've had tell you is a fan of Big Bang Theory.
I mean, Quentin Tarantino. I think.
Okay, all right.
Awesome.
We have audio. We can send it to your team if you want to hear
right
it.
now. That's unbelievable. Wow. No, I think what's also funny about Dustin not knowing Big Bang Theory is that means he didn't know Simon. So like when I was like, you're going to be acting with this guy, and also Simon's he's not in a lot of the movie.
Yeah.
So like after we had rehearsal the first day with Dustin and Simon, which Simon said, he's like, I've always wanted to hold a place next to Dustin. Like the two of them, they look so much like, their energy is so awesome. And Dustin turned to me after like one of the rehearsals, and he's like, this kid's pretty good.
He has a future ahead of him.
Yeah, I know. He's really going places, this Simon Helberg kid. Anyway, so sorry. And then
okay.
I'm
not going to let you undersell your material, because this is a very complicated, material, and it's extremely honest. It goes to some really difficult places. And I'm telling you, you gave Candice and Dustin some of the best roles that they've had in a really, really long time. But it asks them to go through some really difficult situations, which considering mortality and just the inevitability of your body failing, and the problems that come with that. As a director, do you build to those scenes? Do you want to get them out of the way right away? How did you approach it? How did your cast want to approach it?
Gosh, so I want to speak to the first part of that, because I think one of the most interesting experiences was that of the crew, and all of us who were getting to see, in particular, Dustin and Candice, people that many of us associate with their youth. And of course, they both have a very beautiful and long career. However, the iconic images, that many of us have and hold of Dustin and Candice. I pulled up her Vogue cover just to show the hair and makeup department, because she had an entire persona even before, being an actress, right? She was raised in this like very, very prominent Hollywood family. And even Dustin, most of us think of him, so to see these characters, them having to deal with aging, mortality, but also to see the actors having to perform that was painful and complicated. Many of our crew, we had a very small crew, but many said that they took this job specifically in the middle of COVID because they wanted to witness, these actors,
cathartic.
And it's fascinating. And, it's not as easy to memorize as you get older. I'm 46 and like, I've still got it, but it's not exactly the same. And so like, this is a process. So you're watching people witnessing, also having to play younger versions of themselves, where you need like a this. And my father of blessed memory was bipolar, and so I did base that character on that. And a lot of the mania that I wrote is very hard to communicate when the actor is Dustin's age, and he acknowledged that. Like, I want you pacing, I want you like this, and it's like, oh, that's not going to happen. How do I rework it to try and keep some of that energy and keep it in dialogue and get to the end point of the scene if you don't have like that kind of intensity? So that was kind of one aspect. And in terms of, the others, I was very sensitive. I didn't want Dustin to have to be the corpse at any point. So we found ways to work around that. I was pretty certain I did not want to show a body that was no longer living, meaning a character, and I have actual images that many scenes in the movie are based on. So like from my life and my father's life. So I would show those just to the actors, the actors and David, my DP were the only ones who saw those. So there was specific kind of moments around these points that I knew I wanted to get to visually and also musically as well. I say this movie was told three ways, words and images and sound.
Yeah, your choice of songs are fantastic. I'm sorry, Kev.
No, it's okay. No, and in terms of like, I find this fascinating because as a director now and making a feature film and directing actors like Dustin Hoffman, I'm curious what it taught you about yourself as an actor. Just to kind of be on the other side of that, did it teach you how you want to be directed or how you want to be working on a set? Like, did you kind of like unlock anything about your process through this?
Yeah, I mean, Dustin is a much more open and receptive actor than I am. And so I definitely was like, I should probably look at that. He wanted, and it could just, he and I just, I do very well in that demographic of human. Older people really, really like me. There's just something that's just like me. Like I'm a person who likes to go to, senior citizen centers. Like that I volunteered at one when I was a teenager. Like that's just like, I like old people. So Dustin and I, we sort of have a very similar, like, I think I'm like him inside, like we have a similar way of talking. We talk like this, we do this, like he sprinkles a little Yiddish here. Like we had a definite, kind of vibe. And he wanted things explained. I never thought that he would ask me how to deliver something ever. And it's, again, like not lip service, like he really, and I would kind of explain something and I'd say like, is that too much? He's like, no, just more, like keep talking. Like that was sort of part of his, like the fact that he can be at the place in his career, the stage of his, like a 2-time Oscar win, like, and still want to be so open. He came to the set every single morning before he got into hair and makeup to see what was on the docket for the day, look around the set, say hello to the crew every single morning.
Wow, that's awesome.
This is a person who thrives alive on a set. Yeah. Thrives. He did not, I'm sure he has bad moods. I'm sure his assistant and his wife and his kids could tell us all sorts of things, but this is a person who is alive on a set and brings a set to life. I mean, Candice, when he was around, he lit up the room and you could see it in Candice's character. And honestly, that's the kind of man my father was. He was this very, cerebral and eccentric, artsy person, but he lit up a room. And that energy was like so important,
Outstanding.
That's cool. So you think you might like use some of that in your own career going forward?
I think I need to be not so stubborn as an actor. Like that's really, to see how open he is. But I will say that a lot of things about my sensibility felt similar to something Dustin, like I am a person, I want to look at the crew in the eye. I want to talk to them. I want people to feel familiar with me as an actor. And so that was really actually nice to see that you can keep that going for decades and decades. It never gets old to be kind that way to a crew.
I love that. A lot of times when an actor is a part of a series for a long time, at a certain point they want to step in and direct. I think John Hamm did a couple of episodes of Mad Men. Bryan Cranston did a few episodes of Breaking Bad. Yeah. But I'm curious if you ever considered, I know Mark did most of Big Bang Theory, but I'm curious if you ever wanted to step in and try to direct an episode, or is that too hectic? Is the sitcom schedule too hectic to be on both sides of the camera?
Yeah, I mean, I could see direct. I mean, I never would have thought of it, in Big Bang times, just because I was quite low on the totem pole, like I wasn't going to be like, and now I'm going to direct. Like, I've been nominated for 4 Emmys. Now I direct. No, I really got to kind of fly under the radar when you're brought in, and made a regular in the 4th season. But on Call Me Kat, we're finishing our 2nd season, and again, our technical director he's phenomenal. His name's David Cole-Clazier, and I would love to direct with David as my partner. Like I know that. Directing sitcom is very different, but also to be honest, I'm not saying it's easy, but you have 4 cameras and no wall. It's just right there. It's great. Yeah. And that was a real shift for me also as I learned to direct, not in that way. Some days we had 2 cameras, but I had to pretend like we had 1. That's a whole different set of blocking, planning, and also
you can turn around now.
I mean, also very, very tight schedule, very low budget. Josh Hartso was our first AD and he was phenomenal. And in terms of, I can't remember which question it was, but I feel like I didn't touch on it. There was an order, how do we decide the order? Josh Hartnett decided the order, right? And then I will tell you the very first scene that we did as a family was the biggest fight scene where Simon gets hit. That was the first scene that we filmed.
Oh, wow. Goodness.
Exactly. Would I have chosen it that way? No. There was also, I mean, it was like New Jersey in the summer. It was like storming. It was so humid. We didn't have air conditioning. Like the power went out. We had to film those singles about an hour apart for each of the actors because our power went out. And there's lightning in New Jersey. You cannot turn on your generator. Like it was, our guys wired through the house so that we could finish the scene. It was insane. That was our first scene we shot.
Oh
and
my God.
I mean, that's just, it's whatever the schedule lets you have. It's how many days do you have this person's house that you're renting? Like it was madness. And on sitcom, it's so safe. Like every day you show up and there's the sets, everything's fine. It could be a storm, like so different. And
I'm
also
so
like,
anxious just hearing you talk about this.
yeah, but you know what? That's why film is film. You know, my parents were documentary filmmakers. I grew up with 16 millimeter and 8 millimeter, like just like hanging around the house. Like reel to reel was like what we did for fun, like just to watch, you know? So I grew up with a reverence, you know, for cinema. So to me, sitcom, like I know what people say about sitcom, like I know how it is, you know? So entering the world of film was also just really special. It was kind of getting back to what I was raised as my roots, you know?
Love that.
We would be completely remiss if we didn't bring up Dianna, who is just the rock that holds this entire production together. And she's exquisite from scene to scene. So, I mean, just what did you see in her that made her right for Abigail? And then what did she basically teach you as you were working with her about what she's capable of?
I think she'd be okay with me sharing this. We met, you know, we had to meet by Zoom. It was during COVID. I was on set with Call Me Kat. She was in, I want to say like Brazil. She was in Brazil. She was like spent, you know, like you do. You spend.
Sure. Who's not?
Yeah.
And I'm picturing her like poolside, like what is her life? And I look like I just woke up, but it's like noon because I always look like I just woke up. And I remember thinking like, am I that like weird eccentric director person that's like my hair's like all here and I'm like on a break from work. And what she said is this script is extremely important to me. And I feel like I need to be in this movie and I will move mountains to do this movie.
Okay.
And I don't mean to say that like I live by passion or people's passion, but there is something very special about hearing that from an actress like that who specifically does small films. She specifically does independent films. And it meant a lot to her. And Dianna has shared that her father has MS, which is a progressive degenerative condition that she's been dealing with since she's a teenager. She understands this character. She brought a lot of specialness to this character. I can say that I think for everyone, this film was very special personally. I choose not to tell other people's stories. Dianna has spoken about hers a bit, but it was special to everyone. In personal ways. And I think with Dianna's performance and, you know, I had never seen it big, you know, I'm watching her this size and then as I edit, I'm watching her this size, you know, when I finally saw the cut, I was like, she was doing things that were even like more fascinating than I even was able to clock, you know, and I was right here with her, but, you know, she is a face you cannot make look bad. And I don't just mean because she's an attractive human. I mean, as a performer, like every contortion that she can do for me, it lands. It really lands. Yeah, she does a really, really beautiful job. And yeah, we got runny nose from her more than once. So
there's an authenticity to what she brings to some extremely complicated situations that I'm not surprised to hear that she's had some personal experience with that. Yeah. It definitely comes through in her performance.
Yep.
You know, I want to switch gears because I found this interesting. You mentioned 4 cameras on a sitcom with like Big Bang, and it got me thinking about like the process of like what that shoot is like. And obviously, you know, you've been in so many different things over your career, but you've also worked in different generations of television. Like Blossom was a big deal, and then Big Bang. And I just wonder, like in your mind, how TV changed from like something like Blossom to Big Bang, and was Blossom like a 1 camera, 2 camera? Like what was the difference in those shoots?
So Blossom, just to place it in people's history, I don't know if any of you were born.
I watched it.
Okay.
No, that's the first thing I saw you in. That's why I brought that up.
So I'm, just for reference, I'm 46. So when I was 14, we started on Blossom. We premiered after the Cosby Show. That's how old we are. And then we were next to Breakfast. Right. We were that was our premiere. We were on NBC. We were a primetime family show. We were not Punky Brewster, with all due respect to date, like late afternoon stuff. We were an evening show, and then we were paired with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which is what we called Will Smith back in the day. We were a 4-camera sitcom. We were a Whit Thomas show. So Whit Thomas and Whit Thomas Harris brought you Soap and Golden Girls and Empty Nest and Nurses. I was part of that legacy, as it were, of Paul Witt and Tony Thomas, one of the most famous Jewish-Arab partnerships in Hollywood, I'd like to point out. Paul passed away a few years ago, but they and Don Rio, who created Blossom, they raised me in this industry. And we did 2 tapings. We did a 4:30 to 6 dress rehearsal, and then like a 6:30 to 10 o'clock taping. So we did 2 tapings with notes in between. Notes were given in front of like the entire crew. You would all sit at a big table and they would tell you everything you did wrong, like in front of your parents. Like that's just how we did it. We all went to a soundstage. You had a half hour to eat and get back and do it again. Very classic sitcom, no laugh track because people laughed at those kinds of jokes, and that's how we did it. And I did that for 5 years. I did that from 14 to 19. 12 years later, when I came back to the industry of the Big Bang world, I had done some episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is very, very different, obviously. Yeah. And Big Bang operated pretty much like the old school. Chuck Lorre believed in sitcom for a reason. The jokes were much tighter. The characters were much more honed, and I was entering a show that already had its stride, and that's very different. I don't think you cannot mention the impact of social media and a shift in culture that impacts all the work that we do in the industry. We were not untouched by that, on Big Bang Theory. So, whereas I used to go to a red carpet event in like a cute dress, like now 14-year-old girls are expected to look like women with extensions, hair extensions and manicures and Spanx. Spanx didn't exist. Cell phones didn't exist. Like, all these things. So it changes the dynamic. But to me, classic sitcom 4-camera, it doesn't change. I mean, back in the day, we didn't have cold opens. You didn't have a cold open or a tag. You just started the episode. So like Bill Bixby was our director back in the day, and he did these like pretty montages of like, kind of coloring in the first shot to give us an in. But episodes used to be 24 minutes. I think they might have been 26 when we started. Now they're 21. Wow. That's a huge shift. I mean, I could go on forever in a day if you ever want to have me back to talk about kind of the differences in,
anytime. Yes. Please.
Fascinating. And also it was completely standard for like men to touch women inappropriately all the time. It happens all the time, and the fact that we have a consciousness now of like, oh, I don't need to hug you. You don't need to touch me there. That's such a huge difference. I mean, diversity, like crews used to be entirely white men in their 50s. It was like a factory of like, where are the white men in their 50s? That's it.
Right.
Now we have diversity. We have a woman DP on Call Me Kat. I never met one in television. I've never seen female gaffers. Our female special effects, like women doing jobs you never saw, people of color, like what? There were never people of color in so many situations. And now we see that obviously a lot more, and we'll continue to.
Wow. Just in 12 years, all that changes. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Makes you wonder what's going to happen in the next 12 years. I'm going to cut you loose on this. And this is a question I've actually always wanted to ask you. If you can't tell, we're 3 people who take pride in doing our homework and knowing who we're talking to. And you have a doctorate in neuroscience. And what used to drive me crazy is whenever I would see instances of, because you mentioned red carpets, of people on red carpet asking you what it was like to have to fake an understanding of the science in Big Bang Theory. And I used to want to scream into the television.
There's one that became like a GIF, a meme. I don't know, I'm an old person. There's one that was circulating where he was like, what's it like having to talk about all that calculus?
But you were so classy about it, and you kept your cool, and you would say, actually, I have a doctor. Like, were you internally screaming when you would get asked that, or is it just sort of like, okay?
I mean, when you put me on a red carpet, I'm internally screaming all the time. Everything. I'm just, I don't mean to, I would never bite the hand that feeds me. I've been raised in this industry my life, my health insurance, my children's existence, like so many things I owe to being able to live my life as an artist and creator. And I would never bite the hand that feeds me, but like, how nuts is it that we spend all this money and we get all dressed up and like they ask you questions like, who are you wearing? Like, it's like the whole thing is so bananas. And like, and then especially with everything that's gone on in the world for all time, but especially the last like 5 years, it's hard. And that was like a weird thing when I went to the Critics' Choice. I got to present for the first time. I had won that award twice. So it was like, that was a big deal. I've never been asked to present. They don't usually ask my type to present. So I was like, it's going to happen. And meanwhile, like there's like a war in Ukraine and we're all like on the carpet, and I hadn't been out to a red carpet like because of COVID. Like, so everything is so surreal in those situations. So then when they ask you all sorts of things, it's like, I'm also glad that like women started saying like, why am I asked what I'm wearing when men are asked about the movie they're in? Like, and I don't mean to just be like, oh, there's that like feminist coming out, but like, it's kind of weird and true. And I would advocate that like, there should be basically a black tie dress for women. Like you just all wear you could wear a different black dress so that we don't have also so much attention on like the insanity of like, the differences in that sense between, men and women that way. So I think there's a lot of interesting gender stuff that happens on carpets. And I think also for me as someone who really thrives in this kind of arena that we're in right now, to put me on a carpet and hope for a funny soundbite out of me is like, I'm not the girl you go up to at a cocktail party because you necessarily want to like take her home. You want to like find out what she's thinking about, and maybe we'll have drinks next week. That's
why we started this show.
This is what our cocktail parties are like, to be honest with you.
Yes.
Mayim, seriously, we cannot thank you enough for taking the time to chat with us. If you can't tell, we were all very excited about this, and seriously, thank you for being such a great conversation. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be, to be in this space with you. It's very new for me, and it's really exciting to be able to talk about the cerebral aspects of making a film, which to me are the technical aspects were really the most important. So I really appreciate having a space to talk about that.
You are welcome back anytime, honestly.
Yeah, come back anytime.
Thank you.
Let us know what you're doing tomorrow. We'll touch base.
Copy that. I'm on Jeopardy tomorrow, actually. Busy day.
Bye, guys. You can skip that. All right, see ya.
Thank you again to Mayim Bialik for coming on the show. We're going to discuss As They Made Us later on. I'm going to give a quick review for it, but Kev, talk about the interview. She was a terrific guest.
She was phenomenal. And what's crazy about it is like growing up, she was always Blossom to me because that was the character that I was first introduced to. So I'm actually really far into Big Bang Theory now. I'm on season 2, episode 7. Just, I know. I wanted to save this for the show.
Just casually wait. You made it through the punishment, and you liked it enough where you just said, "I'm going to continue going."
Yeah. Well, so crazy thing is this. Like, I know I wanted to save this for the show because I love it, obviously. And so for what Jake's referring to, if you missed our Oscar bet, basically, we all predict the nominees, and Jake won as he always does, and he gives Sean and I a punishment. So we watched. Human Centipede 3 was one of them, and then this time it was the first 17 episodes of The Big Bang Theory,
a show that I love.
It's a phenomenal binge because they're 19, 20-minute episodes. Oh, that's awesome. What's interesting about it, though, speaking of Mayim Bialik, in the first season, which is really strange, a character talks about Blossom. Yeah, and they actually say, so I think they're trying to like match somebody with somebody, and they say, "Oh, the girl from Blossom would be perfect," or whatever they say in the show. And then obviously she shows up on the series. I haven't seen her show up yet exactly, but big fan of it. Last thing I'll say about it is this: the way they use the four floors of walking up the stairs to have dialogue is
it's a brilliant idea.
Incredible. But I also learn a lot from Sheldon, even when he goes off on those rants about like science and all this stuff. Big into it. I've already gone way beyond what Jake asked, and I'm on episode 7. I'll watch probably 4 or 5 more tonight. Yeah. It's great
to the point where I'm glad Kevin brought that up, because that was the question at the end of the episode where we had one more question. I sort of texted Jake and I was like, tell him to wrap. I thought that was the question that you were going to ask.
I wanted to, and I definitely wanted to do that. There was something about
her name,
about her name,
name dropped.
And I should have asked that. But yeah, I ended up obviously asking the question about, just because I thought she would respond well to this idea that so many people have asked her over her career if she understands the science, and she's an actual doctor. She's an actual genius. Yeah. No, she was fantastic. And I loved her genuine reaction. And I told Simon Helberg this as well. Whenever we got to tell her that Quentin Tarantino likes Big Bang Theory, like that was such a real genuine reaction from her. And if you get the chance to actually watch the interview on YouTube, her facial reaction in that moment is fantastic. So if you get a chance, that was my favorite moment of that.
And it's a great show. I'm like so into it. And I think, thank you for letting me, for getting me into it. But it's genuinely is great. So I'm past my punishment.
Yes.
And there's 279 episodes.
Yeah, there is. And
is
all
still
of them?
on?
No, it's off.
It's
the
over?
ending. The ending's great. It ends
HBO
very
Max.
well. HBO Max.
All right. Sounds good. Let's get to Morbius, which opened this past weekend and opened to as of now, its domestic pull is $41.1 million. Internationally, it added another $44.9 million. It is currently worldwide at $86 million. Now, why is that significant? Significant because Sony only spent $75 million on it. And then, had to market it, obviously, but they kept the costs way, way down. Probably because they made it back in 2003 and have been holding on to it since then. So the costs have been low. But either way, they're going to end up making money on it, which goes to show that outside of the Spider-Man No Way Homes of them all, of which people are going to turn out because of the Marvel influence, Venom and its sequel and Morbius, these movies are making money. People are turning out to these movies, maybe not in droves, at the way that, Venom made more money in its opening weekend than Morbius did. But Morbius had plenty of support, and it had plenty of support in the face of truly horrible reviews. And Kev, I wanted you to touch on this because you were commenting on the fact that, and I agree with you 100%, I feel like a lot of people went into that movie opening weekend or leading into opening weekend with their minds made up. Jake, don't give me that look, Jake, because you know that happens a lot. I'm not saying that you did, but I think a lot of people did.
I think Morbius brought out some of the worst in film Twitter that I've ever seen. And just in
That's
terms
a bold statement, sir.
And
I agree with them.
I say that because, it's so interesting. Like I just got off an interview just now with Eva Longoria and Matt Walsh for this movie called Unplugging, which is about a couple who puts their phones away and goes on a trip and tries to not be on their phones. Because I got a weekly report the other day that said I was on my phone for average of 9 hours a day.
Ooh,
and I was like, and I was like, what? Like, this is so ridiculous. Because Kevin Smith posted something the other day that he was like 110% over his average. And he only was at an hour and 40 minutes a day.
I want to bring that up because my phone is on. Like, I get in trouble from the boys. The boys yell at me all the time because they're like, why don't you turn your phone off? And I don't turn it off. But if I just leave it on, doesn't that mean like the phone thinks that I'm on it?
What?
Some of the apps
we're gonna hang on.
do
Let's
run
have
in the background.
let's have a technology corner with Grandpa.
Is that an old man thing?
Yeah. What are you saying? You mean unlocked?
Well, right. Like if I
If
have
it's just
my
sitting
phone
there unlocked
on, right? Like, yeah, if I've
okay,
used
you
it
meant
for
unlocked.
something and then I put it down on the thing, I don't turn it off.
So the stat that you guys are talking about is called screen on time. So it's not like tracking that you're like staring at it or the activity that you're doing. It's just that the screen is on and it tracks that. So yes, Sean.
So the
It's tracking
reason
that my thing is
Back
on.
to movies.
And the reason I brought this up is because, and again, this goes back to the Morbius discussion. I realized like how much time is being wasted just looking at film Twitter and kind of the way people, and sorry, my dogs are barking. I apologize for that. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is though, as I looked through Twitter this weekend and the week leading up to Morbius, it just depressed me severely to see people just hating on something. And
Did I miss this? I feel like I didn't see that. I mean, people making fun of it, but I feel like I didn't see, not to the degree that I feel like I saw people ripping on each other on like Star Wars or I didn't feel like I didn't see that.
There was something,
much.
I don't know, that I found something, the tone I got on social media was that people wanted this film to fail. And that's what I don't really understand. Like we've gotten to a point in society where people are just rooting against things and trying to get things to fail. And I found that to be really disheartening. And it honestly makes me, I've tried to take social media breaks and things like that. But Morbius particularly, I was blown away by the negativity and the hatred before anybody even saw the film. People were like, People were celebrating. Oh, 19%. Yeah, this is amazing.
Let me combat that for a second. Were they rooting? Because you're right. A lot of people, I don't know if I saw a ton of people rooting for it to fail. I saw a ton of people just making fun of it. But were they so much ragging on the movie or Leto? Yeah. Because I feel like Leto has a ton of negative discourse just around him and a lot of and that story that just came out where he would make the crew wait 45 minutes so that he could go to the bathroom, quote unquote, in character. Like I feel like all those stories coming out kind of just made people go. I think a lot of people are kind of over Leto right now.
Let's unpack that.
This is before the discourse on Leto.
Real quick. I want to unpack that. So going to the bathroom in character, would he turn into a bat? Like, was he put on some bat?
So apparently he...
I actually understand why he did this.
I do not.
I'm kidding. I wanted to make a bad joke. I don't actually want to discuss what he did.
Okay. Well, because he would make someone like wheel him in a wheelchair which I just think is the most ridiculous thing in the world. But I think what I saw was that. Like he wanted to go like to the bathroom in crutches, and then they were like, "Dude, that's going to take you too long. Like, can we just put you in a wheelchair?" Right. And so he had someone push him in a wheelchair to the bathroom.
He didn't make someone do that. He was originally trying to walk to the bathroom, from what I understand, in the crutches, and they said, "This is taking too much time, so we're going to put you in a chair."
That doesn't help. That doesn't help.
I'm just saying.
But I think, but to your point, I think the Leto discourse started before. I think the Leto discourse started around House of Gucci. I think Leto's had a target on his back for the last few months of people kind of ragging on him a little bit.
Yeah, but you guys don't like Sean, and back me up here. I felt that there was such a tone on social media, and this just could be my feed, of people like celebrating or wanting it to not perform, not have a good box office. They were celebrating the Rotten Tomatoes score. And I'm not defending Morbius. It's a fine movie. I don't think it's horrible.
Morbius sucks.
I don't think it sucks. I don't think it's great. I thought it was entertaining and I enjoyed it, but it is forgettable. Ultimately.
They're going to use that on the poster.
But I think that I'm just tired of the negativity. I'm so tired of this hatred that people have. It's a movie.
Opening weekend, there was a lot of people who did see it and came back and said it was one of the worst things that they've ever seen.
Which it's not.
Which I don't agree with. And Jake is probably right in that there's a Leto discourse.
Jack Hamilton.
But I think with this particular film, there's also a very strong Sony discourse in terms of Sony Spider-Man movies. I think that people are very quick to dump on them. And this happens to be the next one. And which is strange coming off of No Way Home, which, yes, is a Marvel movie, but is all that money's going to Sony. Marvel's not making money off of that. They're making merchandise. They're still making some money off of it. Yes, of course. But that's a Sony movie, technically. And then Sony, when you think about it, has had a pretty good run because Uncharted did better than people expected it to do. And I forget what it had before that too. Not the Denzel movie, but I thought Sony had one that was right before that too. And then Morbius opened better than what they expected. I heard numbers from inside Sony's studio where they were like, if Morbius can make this, we're happy. And it made north of that. So they're happy. They're happy. But I do think that Twitter is really quick to pounce on any kind of Sony universe because they think that universe is stupid. Now, it's hard to defend that universe because I don't think that universe really is figuring out. It's still trying to figure out what it's doing, and it's 4 movies deep into it, and the post-credit scenes didn't help it because it just made it more confusing.
And I got to be honest, I feel like the director's post-release interviews have also not helped. Him basically coming out and being like, yeah, I don't really know. And then someone asked him, dude, why was the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man in the trailer? He's like, I don't know. I didn't shoot that. All of that stuff, I feel like is not helping the film's case.
Well, so, and then this is something important that I didn't know, and Sean pointed this out. So Morbius was supposed to open before No Way Home, right? Correct. And then No Way Home. So whatever happened in No Way Home theoretically shifted things for Morbius, which kind of screwed Morbius over in a weird way. It's not a great movie, but it does not deserve this insane hatred. You use that energy somewhere else, please.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, maybe we should give this more thought and more of a discussion at a later time. But it's one of those things where we go, social media is what it is. And people are a little bit so many people, even people in this chat room right here, Jesus, how old am I? Are a little, you lean into cynicism as like an online character and persona. And there are people on Twitter and film Twitter specifically that are good about making that funny. And then there are people that latch onto that as the voice of Twitter. And it just sort of all starts to compound into this, like you're saying, this big negative ball. And it just keeps growing, and people one-upping each other on like how cynical they can be. A lot of it, I doubt, is real world, sort of reflecting the real world, obviously. But it's one of those things that I agree with you, and it's unfortunate, and I hope that people who work on these things aren't paying attention to that, because they always have the best intentions, I think, at some degree. But I think we have to just accept the fact that a lot of people are just trying to play a character online these days, and
I just think
the cynical one is the easier one to play.
Just makes me sad. That's all. But anyways,
don't be sad, Kev. We're gonna make some money on this show, and we're gonna throw it to an
people
ad break.
to celebrate.
Well, let's celebrate movies on the other side of this, because first comes commercial. Here we go.
That's your worst one yet.
I was just about to say, I think it's my favorite one so far.
And we're back recommending some films that are opening this week, both in limited VOD on Netflix and in theaters, starting with a Chris Pine film called All the Old Knives. It's going to be available on VOD. It's available in limited release if you want to check that one out. Netflix has a movie called Metal Lords, which Nick Venable on our site saw and really, really liked a lot. But he's not part of this show, so I'm not going to let him say anything about it. Kevin is very excited to see.
Did he write about it on the site? Can we plug his review?
He did interviews for it, and he described it as it would be Bill and Ted for metal, but without time travel.
Oh, that's pretty badass. That's a great pitch.
It's a pretty good pitch. Yeah. So that's on Netflix, and I'll check that out. Mayim Bialik was our guest this week, and she has a film coming out called As They Made Us, in limited release in VOD. I mentioned earlier that Dustin Hoffman and Candice Bergen are the Candice Bergen.
I was joking. You said earlier that they were unknowns, and I was just bringing that back. Sorry,
I mispronounced the names, as I am wont to do. So they are they're the parents of this character, this daughter, who is kind of like the surrogate for Mayim Bialik, and in fact, as we talked about in the interview, if she ever considered playing this character. And she's dealing with the fact that the father, played by Dustin Hoffman, is failing, essentially. He's getting much older. He's losing his faculties. He can't quite remember who he is or who the rest of the people in his family are. But through flashbacks, you learn that even though he's going through this really tough time, like, he was a hard ass on the whole family growing up. And it's about why the son, who's played by, what's her co-star from Big Bang?
Simon Helberg.
Right. He's the son, and he's alienated from the family because of a fight he had with the father earlier. And it's, can they rekindle their relationship before the father passes away? So it's really heavy stuff. And it's not done with like a wink or that sort of like cynical humor type thing. It really embraces the difficulty of having a parent who's ailing and putting them through the nursing home process. And how would you amend some of these relationships? But it's not overbearing at all and too heavy in a way. I think it raises a lot of really interesting conversations that I'm sure somebody her age is dealing with in terms of having parents who are getting much older and how you take care of them. That
Sean,
cast is tremendous.
It's not overbearing. Would you say that it's not an unbearable weight?
Correct. It is definitely not an unbearable weight, but I would say that Mayim Bialik has massive talent, though, Kev. So there you go. True. Bringing that back all around again. So check out As They Made Us in limited release and also on VOD. Last week, I believe it was, Jake and I reviewed Everything Everywhere All at Once, the new film by the Daniels, but Kevin was not with us. Maybe this was 2 weeks ago because it's been on a platform and it's coming out wide this week. So Kev, you have caught up with the multiverse Michelle Yeoh. Everything Everywhere All at Once. What are your thoughts on this film?
My favorite movie of the year so far.
Nice.
No question. So it's interesting to me because this film means a lot to a lot of people. Like there are different things that people take away from it, different things that people relate to. But in a strange way, to me, at the end of the day, like, I found it to be personally like a metaphor for an ADHD brain. And
did you tell I know you interviewed the Daniels. Did you tell them that?
Yeah, and
what was their
so
reaction?
They said that's what we were going for. I mean, outside of like the themes and kind of what they're doing with family and Michelle's character, but the Daniels, one of the directors, I can't remember. I know they're both Daniel, but one of them said that they got diagnosed with ADD while they were writing the script because they're trying to understand their brain. And one of the fascinating things about this film is it's so chaotic to a point where they actually wanted it to go off the rails. They wanted you to feel like you were on a roller coaster that was like about to tip off, and it is supposed to go off. And then you're supposed to come back on and then find a sense of calm. And this concept of what ifs, what if my life was this way? What if my life was this way? What if I did this? What if I did that? And in today's society, we're always being told over and over, essentially, we're not doing enough. And, what if I could have done this and could have been a movie star and, moved to California, et cetera. And then you really don't end up living your own life in the present day of what you're supposed to be doing. And kind of like the concept of this film for me was her family and her coming to a realization that she is happy, that she has a beautiful life with her family. Now, thematically, emotionally, that's where I love the film from that particular standpoint. On top of that, when you can make a technical masterpiece that also serves the emotional aspect of the story, then you really have, to me, a phenomenal picture on your hands. And the way this film was shot, there's multiple aspect ratios while we're in different universes. So if we're in one multiverse of this character, it'll be a different ratio, and then it'll open back up again to the other universe that you're in. And they do that to play with your mind so you know where you are and which character you're looking at. But it becomes a thing that actually is supposed to frustrate you. I mean, to me, there's a chaotic nature to this film that is unnerving to a point where it's Everything Everywhere All at Once is a perfect title because honestly, your brain can't handle a lot of what you're watching because it's so absurd and so insane. But that's the brilliance. You're on that track with it, and you fall off that track with it, and then you get back on that track with it. Score, everything. And one of the cool things about it is they shot each character's universe. They lensed it, aspect ratioed it, scored it differently. Everything was done. So subconsciously, your mind is supposed to be jumping around and understanding that. Michelle, her performance is absolutely phenomenal. I think it might be the best performance of her career. I think she was born to play this role. It was written for her. Obviously, Crouching Tiger was probably the first one I was introduced to her years ago. But I'm just happy to see her in this starring role in this film that is so well received. And Swiss Army Man was a great example of these filmmakers who do really, really good practical effects. I mean, even the farting body in Swiss Army Man, when Paul Dano is riding Daniel Radcliffe's body across the water and as he's farting, that's real. That's a practical effect. There's, CG is barely in that scene. They built an actual thing that operated that Paul Dano could get on and ride. So in this movie, there's a ton of that. I won't go into too much details, but like the things that you would be surprised that are not CGI will blow your mind. Like there's a simple shot of two characters sinking into a couch. That is a practical effect. That is not CGI. They actually pulled the actors down. It's a kind of a cool thing how they play with it. Michelle kind of puts it as like an indie film in the way it was made. And I'll point this thing out and then I'll end my thoughts. Ki
Hoi Kwan,
the general, who is phenomenal. Michelle Yeoh is amazing. But what I loved about this is that he hadn't done a movie in so many years, right? And like you think about Short Round from Temple of Doom, and you think about Data from the Goonies, but this brought him back to the way film sets used to be in the 80s. He said that when he walked on this set, it kind of just reminded him about like what Spielberg sets looked like back then. Like they were doing everything in camera. And his performance in the film is incredible. And just everybody, Jamie Lee Curtis, I was just blown away by Michelle Yeoh specifically and what this film does. And I think everybody watching it will get a different variation of what it gives you. But for me, it was the ADD aspect of it that it kind of helped me understand the chaos of my brain and realizing the importance of being present, while on top of that, just being a badass action film and a badass story and an awesome, it's awesome all around. It's amazing. Loved it.
Kevin, I don't know, you weren't here when we talked about it earlier. I compared it to seeing The Matrix for the first time.
No question. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's that's an interesting point because Matrix is so game changing.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is definitely a great film. I do understand that comparison.
Let me tell you this. In terms of, we seem to be moving into a phase now, and I don't know how many projects can actually tackle this, but like multiversal storytelling, right? And you're going to see in Doctor Strange characters who are playing multiple versions of actors who are playing multiple versions of the same characters. Now, how many times can we do this before it gets tiresome, sort of thing? But this seemed to be the quintessential version of, if somebody comes to you and says that there's multiple universes and, you know, you're the one who has to be able to save all of them, and you happen to be the woman who owns a laundromat, you know, and is facing an IRS audit, and then the story goes from there. It's remarkable that in terms of, because to me, what blew me away the most about this movie is the editing. Like, I never lost focus of where we were in the story. And if they can tell a story this way, using practical effects that you talk about, but still keeping you on this incredibly wild ride without losing you.
You're supposed to get lost in it. That's
sure.
that they want you to be like disoriented, like the characters. But what's fascinating about what you're saying about the Matrix, there's one scene in particular, this is not a spoiler, but right in the beginning of the film where Michelle Yeoh's character is being told to do something in an office, right? And she's like ducking down in the cubicles. That's very, very Neo Morpheus on the phone telling him what to do kind of thing. So I can totally see that. But it's honestly a masterpiece. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, I was blown away. And it's available in IMAX currently, but I think it's going to lose some screens to Ambulance, because I think Ambulance is going into IMAX. But it's going wide. You'll be able to see it in more theaters. And so we recommend highly that you go see it. Kev is the only one here on staff who has seen Sonic the Hedgehog 2, starring friend of the show, Ben Schwartz. So Kev, keep going. Take it away. And let us know what you thought about Sonic.
I'll keep it quick. I love the first. Love is a strong word. I really liked the first Sonic. I was really impressed with the visual effects. I thought Ben did a great job with the voice of Sonic. I thought Robotnik, Carrie's performance was incredible. He put a lot of thought into it. It wasn't just a, bad guy villain. He actually had a lot to go into that. And like, there's a line in the first movie where his character refers to something about an orphan face. And I remember asking Jim Carrey about that, because like, he literally built this backstory about who this guy was prior to becoming the villain that he is. Like, that's how detail oriented, and you can actually see it in the performance. He's really good at like building that in, even to a kid's film. But I think Marsden's great in these. Tika Sumpter's great in these. I'm a fan of this franchise. Now, the second one is, I would say it's a little below the first one, only because it felt a little longer than I thought it should have. It just kind of dragged a slight bit. But visual effects wise are unbelievable. Idris Elba is unbelievable as Knuckles. I loved that dynamic. Once it really gets into like the video game type action where like Sonic is like in that ball going really quick and they're fighting each other, it's awesome. I mean, that stuff is so cool. And there's like the visual effects in this one are unbelievable. There's a scene that's in the trailer where you see Jim Carrey like taking apart like motor vehicles and trains. The visual effects on that, it's like the opposite of a Transformer effect, where like it's coming apart in pieces because he's building this gigantic thing he's going to go into, which is in the trailer as well. But visual effects wise, and it's ironically, remember the first film came out, the trailers people were very negative towards the look of Sonic, and then they fixed it, which was actually that was where social media actually helped in a situation. That movie made $319 million. People loved it. Kids loved it. And now they're back, and it's fun. I mean, to me, I just enjoy these movies, and I will watch 5-6 more of them. I don't know. I'm into it. And I wasn't even a huge Sonic head growing up. I was more of a Nintendo kid, but I was always interested in the idea of the visual of Sonic and like, how can you actually operate that in a film? They do a really good job. And Schwartz is a hell of an actor. He really is, because you got to play these scenes where Sonic's going like super fast, but the dialogue has to flow as if Sonic would be saying it in those moments. And he has this sense of calm that he gets into when he's going crazy fast. I don't know. I'm a fan of it. I liked it.
It's funny that they co-star Jim Carrey, because it's reminiscent of when Carrey would voice or would do like The Grinch, right? And you assume that he was riffing and throwing jokes at the people, and then they like would have to reshoot to almost include his humor, or even like Robin Williams with Aladdin, where there wasn't a script per se. And I wonder if that's the case with Ben Schwartz and Sonic because of how quickly he works in improv.
And you mentioned Metal Lords. I want to mention this real fast, which is kind of cool. If you're a metalhead, there's two. So weirdly enough, I just kind of put this together when I was interviewing Jim Carrey for this, because there's a lot of heavy metal music references in his career. One of the first movies he ever did, he has this I don't remember the name of it. He has this crazy dance scene to Guns N' Roses. It's an incredible sequence. If I think it's Welcome to the Jungle, and he's just like dancing around this room, and he uses the heavy rock to kind of move his body. Then if you go to Ace Ventura, he's in that Cannibal Corpse concert when he shows up and he asks that guy for directions, and the guy's like headbanging, and he goes, "Oh, over there? Okay, cool. Yeah. Thank you. And then later on down the line, I'm watching Sonic 2, and I'm like, there's literally a needle drop in this film for Pantera, Walk, which is a really heavy song. And there's a whole sequence where they do a needle drop and that song hits, and he's like going on this epic like rampage. There's a Limp Bizkit reference in the movie. I mean, I just thought it was really funny, like all the metal over the years that he's kind of put into. Did
you ask him about it?
Yeah. Oh, dude, that was a 4-minute interview that turned into a 7-minute interview because he wanted to talk about Nirvana, Deep Purple, and Pantera for like the first 3 or 4 minutes. I was like, the dude is genuinely I think a metalhead, a hard rock guy. And there's if you're a Pantera fan, you're going to get a needle drop to Walk in a Sonic movie. It's just crazy. I don't know. I was really happy. I was like, hell yeah.
I would assume that there are needle drops to heavy metal songs in Ambulance, Jake. And if there aren't, I'm disappointed.
It's more score, believe it or not. Like a pretty, it almost, it reminded me of like a Zimmer Nolan score. A lot of big, heavy drums.
Yeah.
Okay.
I absolutely like. It's crazy to see a movie like this and think, well, this is more of like a smaller independent film for Michael Bay. Like it's definitely on the smaller scale for him. But I honestly absolutely loved it. It's quintessential Bay, but it's also Bay like very like almost scaled back a little bit. Okay. Trying out some new things.
Wait, hold on. What's the runtime?
The runtime is a little over 2 hours.
I think it's like 220 or something.
I don't think it's quite 220. The fact that it's a remake of, I believe, a Finnish film that I think is like 80 minutes.
Perfect.
I mean that's okay. All right. What are you Pete Davidson and SNL? Like what are you like short ass movies?
I love, dude. There's a great for people who haven't seen it, the SNL bit. For Pete Davidson doing short movies, the best joke of it is at the end.
Yeah, about Staten Island.
How long King of Staten Island is?
Yeah.
We needed every minute of those minutes.
We needed that.
So with Ambulance, honestly, it is Bay scaled back, but it also is still very much everything that you love about Bay. Jake Gyllenhaal and Yahya Abdul-Mateen play brothers who rob a bank. And in their getaway, they end up hijacking an ambulance in which there is an EMT in the back trying to save a cop's life. So they end up going on this majority of the film is just this wild chase scene through all the different streets and stuff of Los Angeles, which the people chasing them are very apprehensive to do anything serious to the ambulance because they don't want to hurt the cop in the back. One of the things I love, and the thing I actually thought you would be proud of me, Kevin, because I talked to Michael Bay, and I very rarely like talk about like the technical side of things or cameras, but his usage of drones in this is unbelievable. Like some just awe-inspiring drone shots.
Have you guys seen how they pulled those off? Have you seen the features on that?
Well, he told me that they basically, because I asked him and he said that he's like, I'm going to be honest with you. He goes, there aren't a lot of like truly great drone operators in the United States. Yeah. He said, so I hired these like 19-year-old kids who do these crazy ass like drone videos that you've seen on YouTube. And and he goes, I would go to them and be like, I want you to do X, Y, and Z. And they'd be like, you want us to do what? Like you want and he would do like, and when you see them,
the trailer has that great shot where it goes up the side of a building,
and it flips over, and then there's one where like it runs along a building and then goes up like as a car is like running like, and the timing had to be impeccable. Like as the car's running over this ramp, the drone goes underneath the car. It's just
stuff you couldn't do if you had to have an operator on it.
Yes, it's just phenomenal work. Jake Gyllenhaal's performance, I love. I've confessed many times, I love a good scene, chewy, yelly, screamy performance, and Gyllenhaal basically gets to do that for 2 hours. Yahya, I think, is one of the next great talents that we have working today.
Mm-hmm.
He's just been so strong.
Is he a two-time guest on the show, or did he just come on once?
He came on for trial. Did he come back around for? I don't think we got him for Candyman.
Mm-mm. Okay, but then we almost got him for that.
This is a unique situation. It was my 5th time interviewing Yahya, but first time in person. Yeah. Because I'd never met him because of the pandemic.
That's funny.
I would say see it on the big screen if you can. It is a great, big, giant, big screen movie. It's going to be a guilty pleasure movie for me. Though I feel like, and granted, not that we mark our love or hatred of a movie by how it's doing on Rotten Tomatoes, but for a Michael Bay film, last time I checked, I think it was doing actually fairly well. In regards to the general consensus that I've seen from people is like, for a Michael Bay movie, it's pretty good. Now, granted, I like Michael Bay movies. Right. This is the most I haven't loved a Michael Bay movie in a while. I probably haven't loved a Michael Bay movie since Pain and Gain, and this is probably the most I've loved a Michael Bay movie in quite a while.
Did you see the names of the cameras that he used in this movie?
No,
like he has his own cameras. They're called Bayhem cameras.
No, he said he trademarked the Bayhem.
Literally has Bayhem cameras. Yeah. It's like unbelievable.
One of my favorite things, we got to interview him on the site, and he says, to your point earlier on there, Jake, he says, I wanted to do this small movie, Ambulance, and I just thought about every other filmmaker who's like small movie where he had actual helicopters flying in and drones and like all these explosions. And he's like, I wanted to do this smaller.
Yeah, small. And it's crazy. This movie is like his small little movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also love too, like, he's really reached a point of self-awareness.
Yes.
And maybe he's had it for a long time.
There are characters that name drop Michael Bay movies in Ambulance.
Yeah.
Like one character says another, like, dude, don't forget what Sean Connery said in The Rock.
Oh, really? That's funny.
Which I love.
So,
and he says Bond. I think he's James Bond.
Yeah.
He just gets it wrong.
He's very much in on the joke. And when Eric Eisenberg, who was interviewing Bay for Cinema Blend, mentioned Bayhem, and Bay was like, I didn't come up with that name. Someone else came up with that name, by the way, but I did trademark it.
It's awesome.
He knows who he is.
He's one of my favorite filmmakers.
Kev, you'll have to check out our interview. I don't know if it's up. It might be up. He also tells a great story about Pain and Gain, about the way they shot that.
I love
because
Pain
it was
and Gain.
All kind of guerrilla style, run and gun. He was talking about how they were all in this van or whatever, and Mark Wahlberg's driving illegally through the streets, and he's like, we would see a cop, and they would just be like, hey, how you doing? Like everyone knows who they are because he was right next to his house. Like he used to just moped on the set.
He also, was that in our interview or was it in Jake's? I'm not quite sure.
No, that wasn't mine.
That was ours.
That The Rock quit that movie a week before they started shooting.
Really?
Yeah. Because he said
The Rock is phenomenal in that movie.
He is good,
and he was just like, I'm not going to be able to do this. Like, I don't know for what reason, but he told Bay, he's like, I can't do it. And Bay sat down with him and gave him a long list of all the actors that he's worked with over the years who came to him and said, I can't do what you're asking me to do. And he goes, and look at all the performances that I've gotten out of them. And so Rock was like, all right, I'm in, let's go. And like you said, it's one of his best performances. Yeah. So you say this. So here are Bay's last movies.
Should we just start the blend game? Should we just go into that segment?
Well,
I think he's going to read the reviews, his Rotten Tomatoes, right?
I just want to see like which ones Jake liked. 6 Underground. It's a kind of a mess. Transformers: The Last Night.
No.
Truly terrible. 13 Hours. I thought was a good movie.
Loved it.
I like 13 Hours. Age of Extinction. Transformers: Age of Extinction.
No.
And then Pain and Gain. So all right. So you're not that far off.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our blend game, which is #MichaelBayBlend. And Jake, you were between two, so I'm going to make you go first, and you can finally choose which one you're going to go with.
I know Jake's.
I was between The Rock and Armageddon.
Okay.
And I rewatched The Rock recently because I've been doing I did a bit of a Bay rewatch, but also I've been doing a Nick Cage rewatch as well for obvious reasons. And there was a moment where I was like, maybe it's The Rock, because The Rock is just flawless. But I ended up pulling a clip from Armageddon for a story that we were doing about Bruce Willis and the news that came out last week. And I pulled the clip where Bruce Willis is making the sacrifice on the asteroid, and Ben Affleck is screaming like, "You can't do this! It's my job!" And when he says, "You got to take care of my little girl. That's your job." And that score is swelling. And I was sitting at my desk watching this like 15-second clip, and my eyes started tearing up, and I went, Armageddon's my favorite. Like just like The Rock is a technical marvel, but The Rock does not make me feel what Armageddon makes me feel. I just think the production value on that is phenomenal. There are so many iconic shots. The shot of all of them walking in slow motion in the orange jumpsuits. That score is one of my all-time favorite scores. And with all due respect to Bill Pullman and Independence Day, Armageddon has my favorite presidential speech, because that presidential speech,
interesting, cut
with the shots of people from around the world listening, cut with the shots of them walking to that's everything about it. All the great eclectic cast of characters, from Michael Clark Duncan to Steve Buscemi. I like Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck makes fun of himself a lot about that movie. I like Ben Affleck's performance in that.
I think Billy making fun of Pearl Harbor is what he should be.
Pearl Harbor. Sometimes I forget about Pearl Harbor. I think Billy Bob Thornton is fantastic. Yeah.
Hashtag animal crackers.
Animal crack. I don't mind the animal cracker scene. Doesn't bother me. I love, from the opening Charlton Heston voiceover all the way to, and also you have to keep in mind, and we always talk about sort of like personal aspects. I was 10 years old. I lived walking distance from NASA the summer that came out, and saw it with my dad, who was a roughneck and worked on oil rigs. And that movie made heroes out of the profession that my dad did. So like that movie was the greatest thing. And do you remember that summer? You could not escape that Aerosmith song. That Aerosmith song was inescapable. I still love that song. So because for all those reasons, Armageddon is far and away my favorite Michael Bay film.
All right. So I'm going to go next because I went through a number of different stages like you did. Mm-hmm. I think shortly after we recorded, Jake told me he knew what mine was going to be, and that it would be the first Bad Boys. Mm-hmm. And that was a very good guess, because that's where I was instantly going, because I love the first Bad Boys.
Is it not?
It is not.
Oh, I'm intrigued. I love when I'm wrong.
Bad Boys 2?
Because so I'm going to mention Bad Boys 2 for this reason. I also went down a sort of Bay rabbit hole and watched a lot of different stuff. And I watched The Rock to see if it could be The Rock. And the car chase when Sean Connery has the Jeep SUV type thing.
I'm only borrowing your Humvee.
It got to the point where like I was just in pain watching that sequence happen, because there's so much destruction.
That poor train operator.
There is so much destruction. And what I love about Bay is that it's all practical. Like he's legitimately destroying stuff. So I was like, all right, it's not going to be The Rock. And then I watched Bad Boys 2 because Kevin made me watch Bad Boys 2. And
that's right. That was your punishment.
That was my punishment.
That's right.
But it's not a punishment. Bad Boys 2 is a great movie. It's just not as good as the first one. It's overkill. There's too much. I still stand by the fact that there's too much. And the whole Cuba sequence is when it goes off the rails completely. Awesome. But there's a point during the highway chase scene, which is incredible. It's just the highway chase scene is incredible. They're firing into the guns that the police officers are driving. And one police officer like turns and screams like, Jesus Christ. And I'm convinced that that's the actor. He was not in character. He really just was tired of everything like blowing up in his face. And so it goes to show how intense Bay is. But again, like Bad Boys 2, overkill. It's too much. It's just too much going on. So then I put on Armageddon. And it's perfect. It's the perfect epitome of everything that Michael Bay is. It's kind of dumb, but it's smart enough that you go along with it. He gives the parts to the right people. Like Billy Bob Thornton in that movie is perfect.
Yeah, Billy Bob Thornton, he doesn't get enough credit for how good he is in that movie.
He sells all the stuff that's where every time that we're all just that in the audience, you're thinking like, well, no, you can't. And he comes in and he's like, no, you can't. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, all right. Thank you for saying that, because that's exactly how I felt. Also, there's a lot of times where we like draw a line of demarcation. We're like, here's where Bruce Willis stopped caring. Like that is one of the last authentically charismatic Bruce Willis performances. Mm-hmm. And he has to be a guy who leads that team of not ruffians. What's the like they're kind of degenerates. Like, I don't mean that in a mean way, but like when he gives them a night off, they all run to like gamble and get tattoos, or one guy goes to see his family kind of thing. But they will die on the hill for that guy, right? They love Bruce Willis and they'll do everything in their power to work for him, even if it means going to an asteroid and drilling through it. And I kind of love Ben's commentary of saying like, oh, NASA guys couldn't figure out how to do this, but the Roughnecks know how to drill. And like Willis has a line where he's just like, but it ain't drilling. Like, you don't know what it is.
You don't know jack about drilling.
How to do it. Yeah. And he's like, really, Bruce? They don't know it. They're NASA scientists. But it just works. It works. All of it works. It feels right. It clicks right. It's the right length. It's super action packed. And so I went with Armageddon because
Peter
I think it does everything.
As the Russian?
That is the one scene where it's like over the top.
When they're at the International Space Station?
Even by Bay's standards. Because Peter Stormare is like, he's on a 12. the movie's on an 11 and he finds a way to get to 12. But thankfully it's just a little pit stop on that little satellite dish that they land on. So I
the International Space Station.
Is that what it's called?
Yes, it's the ISS.
How many things do you know?
No, I thought it was the International. I'm pretty sure it was the International Space Station.
Yeah, I think it's they dock on the ISS to like fuel.
He's a Russian cosmonaut, but he's And then Buscemi going, and then Buscemi going off the rails.
Yeah. It's great. I went with Armageddon.
Yes,
Kev? I love Armageddon. But it's not my favorite. Bad Boys 2 is my favorite, no question.
Interesting.
For a lot of reasons. I first of all, I could sit in a scene with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence in a Michael Bay movie any day of the week. I could watch them like when they go to there's a scene in Bad Boys 2 when they go to an electronics store. they even make that scene interesting. Like like to me, Bay, that to me is the epitome of a Michael Bay film. It's R-rated, it's comedy, it's insane action. That highway chase scene you're referring to with the boat being dropped into the car crash sequence, but just the dialogue that Will and Martin have in those scenes, it makes it's like on top of the action is incredible. There's a scene in that film that I refer to a lot that I think is one of my favorite action scenes of all time, where Martin and Will are in a shootout. And the camera is literally spinning 360 around the building itself, around the actual inside of the building, going in a window and out the other side. And it's like this incredible shot that is so immersive and so intense and so well done. And then it's undercut, or it's cut in with comedy. The way Martin and Will, with the way they handle those sequences is just incredible. I love the ending sequence. I think it's over the top and perfect. I love Gabrielle Union in that movie. I think Joe Pantoliano is hilarious. And the Woosah moment is iconic. When they get back from that gigantic chase scene on the bridge with the boat and everything, and they're sitting in Pantoliano's office, and like they're on the TV behind him is the footage of what just went down, and just the way Will Smith reacts to that, and the way Joe I mean, that whole bit with Joe Pantoliano is classic. And then you have the great scene when they go to Joe Pantoliano's house. Yeah, they go to Joe Pantoliano's house after Martin Lawrence takes the ecstasy, and like that whole sequence. I mean, to me, what's great about that movie is like, when it's not funny, it's insanely action packed, and then it like nothing is ever boring. And like that's a film that's long, but to me deserves its length. Like I love every aspect of that film, even the opening scene with Henry Rollins when they're
Michael Shannon
is
when they come out and go blue power, and like that whole action sequence is so awesome, like the way that shot, and then he shoots Martin Lawrence in the butt, which is hilarious as the bullet goes through. I mean, I know that movie.
It's such a Bay shot. Like Bay has to have a bullet go through someone's butt cheek.
But dude, but like, and then but it's all done it's all done for story and all that works. I mean, even a bit like where a dog, where Martin Lawrence's dog breaks the chain and his pool falls into the water. Hilarious. Like, what a great moment. And then the whole concept of like Gabrielle Union, like dating Will Smith's character.
Bad Boys for Life or Bad Boys 2?
2.
Interesting. I think I put Bad Boys for
But
Life.
Bad Boys 2 does have some crazy dialogue, like really, really crazy offensive stuff in it. But it's.
Wait, did you say
to
you
me,
put Bad Boys for Life over a Bad Boys 2, like on your
I
list?
do. I would. Yeah.
No.
I would.
Really? See, Bad Boys for Life is actually my least favorite of the
Bad
three.
Boys 2, I think, is my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would go 2, 1,
Bad
3.
Boys, yeah.
That's so interesting. I would go 1, 3, 2. All right. Let's get to audience picks. Michael Breen said Bad Boys. Travis said The Rock. Diego Salazar said The Island, and Harry Lickman went with Transformers. It's interesting that Transformers is such a like that's his signature.
It would be for me. It would be up there with The Rock and Armageddon.
I love the first Transformers is fantastic.
Oh, it's one of my favorite.
And actually, I think the third one, there are aspects of the third one that are equally
love the
great.
third
I think I
one.
agree with that. Yeah.
The third one's amazing.
All the
That
stuff in
entire-
Chicago.
Dark of the Moon. Is that Dark of the Moon?
Yeah.
Yeah, when they're flying off the buildings and like they're going in and out of the buildings on those like
That's pretty.
The
That's a great
first one,
Yeah, they
the
shot that
first one
practically.
is so good. The first one is so good
Yeah.
because it like sets up. It feels like a universe. Like it feels like a franchise within the first one,
Yeah.
and that was kind of before that was a film language thing to like set up a wider universe. It just felt like it had a tone,
But I
a
stand
vision that
by
was unique.
that the Transformers franchise should have been handed over to other directors earlier. Like
Yeah, and that was before Marvel figured out to do that. You know,
sure, because I liked Bumblebee too, and it was like
Bumblebee's
a fresh
great.
voice. Yeah. Okay. Next week you're gonna reach out on Twitter using hashtag Michael Pena Blend. So let us know your pick for the films of Michael Pena
I like Michael Pena.
by
of my
using either
faves.
that hashtag or an email realblend@cinemablend.com.
And can I suggest that everybody rewatch End of Watch prior to next week?
Oh, that's a
yeah.
good idea. And also,
that movie was intense.
what was the Seth Rogen movie that he made?
Observe and Report.
Where he
Watch that
played
too.
the
security
Observer
guard.
Report?
They're
that's
a
right,
mall security guard.
Yeah, that's right.
Also,
That is one of the-
Moonfall. We
No.
watch Moonfall.
No, I
I mean,
forgot he was in that.
his Ant-Man performance is
The
amazing
moon
too, though.
falls.
His Ant-Man character is great.
Yeah.
All right, drop us a
Moonfall.
review on Apple Podcasts, and please go leave us a rating on Spotify because more people are finding us on Spotify and of course on the YouTube channel where you can learn where you can figure out how to get onto the premium episodes, because our next premium episode, now that everybody is back, is going to be the 2-film challenge. We're going to be playing the Screenwriters Edition.
Ooh.
So again, check the description down below to find out.
The
more
aliens
info
come to
on
Earth.
How to sign up for what 2 movies do you show them for these screenwriters? Follow us on social media at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, at Sean_O'Connell, at Gabe Kovach, and at ReelBlend is the Twitter address for the show. We will talk to you guys next week with a brand new episode and potentially doing a fun game next week, which I won't announce just in case it doesn't happen. So until then,
Finch.
Hockey pads.